Hello, hello, how are you? I hope that everybody is doing okay at home, taking care of yourself, of your family members. We know that this week has been a difficult week in Colombia because of the different social and economic situations that are happening as a result of the pandemic. But we need to continue with our activities, and although we understand the context that we are living, we also understand that we have some responsibilities in terms of the academic courses that we are taking in our master's program. This week, week number 2, that starts today, April 29th, and goes up to next week, May the 4th, May the 5th. It's a possibility to talk about professional ethics, codes of ethics, and moral responsibility. If you remember, the previous unit was a general introduction to cyber ethics, concepts and theories associated to this new possibility of understanding the ethical and the moral implications of using technology, computers, platforms, laptops, applications, etc. And in the second week of our course, we are going to focus our attention on what happens in terms of cyber ethics and professionalism. In other words, what is the relationship between ethics, the use of technology, and professions? To do that, we have some resources that I invite you to explore so that you know what exactly it is that you need to understand Unit 2. So the resources are the following. You have access to the PDF file, particularly in this case of the unit that we have, that in the book is Unit 4, but for us is the second week, Unit 2. So when you click on access to the PDF file, you will have access to this file where what we have done is to take the chapters that we need. So remember that chapter 1 was the chapter that corresponds to week 1 of our course. All the information, all the examples. Obviously, this is if it's not mandatory. It's not that you have to read the material. It's an option. Obviously, the invitation is always to go to the source, to go to the original, because we know that when we read the originals, we have access to what exactly the author wanted to say and not how teachers or people interpret those ideas. Anyway, this is a resource that you can check and have a look at because it offers, well, like the first important ideas. There is a second chapter, chapter 2, that is open. You decide if you want to read it or not because it discusses some ideas that I presented also last week, last Friday, but it depends on you. If you want to read it, you're more than welcome to do so. If you don't want to do it, it's okay. You don't have to. The only difference here is that they compare ethical concepts against ethical theories and particularly the moral system. But this information that the chapter has, I presented some of the ideas, not all, of course, but some of the ideas that as a professor I found more relevant, more important, more necessary in our context for the master's program and for this elective course. Okay, but the unit or the material that you should read for this second week, that as I said, it is our second week in our elective course, but in the book, the chapter that corresponds to week 2 of our course is chapter 4. The idea of chapter 4 is to invite us as professionals, as teachers, to understand the connection of ethics, morality, and our professional life, our professional status. In other words, there is a very interesting discussion in chapter 4 because what it says is, should we professionals know ethics and morality as an object of study? And if the answer is yes, what does it mean? In other words, should we incorporate, for example, codes of conduct? So should we determine what it is ethical and moral in our profession? And that is a very interesting question because when you, for example, check to see if we have a code of ethics in Colombia for language teachers, you're going to have a surprise. Different story if you check and try to see if doctors or engineers have a code of conduct. So chapter 4 is really interesting because what it does is that it invites us to approach ethics, morality, and the use of technology from the perspective of our profession. So I invite you to go to the original, chapter 4, and read it for this second week of our semester. You are going to find lots of information, lots of examples, most of them within the context of the United States, but many of those examples and situations, we can relate to them as Colombians. Okay, the second resource that you have is a presentation that I have created and that I have where I have tried to summarize, to synthesize the main ideas that I want us to have. There are some images that I used as examples, as invitations to connect our creativity, but also our critical thinking. I start talking about professional ethics and the idea that professional ethics is an aspect or a field of applied ethics or cyber ethics. We also talk about whether or not professionals have ethical or moral obligation. It's important to have that discussion. We have the opportunity of talking about what is a profession and how we understand professions today. Related to what is a profession, it's the idea of what is a professional. And connected to what is a professional, specifically, what happens when we professionals use information technology and computers. In other words, should we change? Should we adapt? What should we do when computers, technology are part of our work? The question, do we have responsibilities that are different when computers and information technology is included? Yes, no. Well, here you will see some discussion about that. The second aspect that I discuss in the presentation is professional codes of ethics. What they are, why they are important, how they work. And in this second section of the presentation, well, there are some ideas of what is the purpose of professional codes. Why have they been criticized? Well, also in this part of the presentation, I try to discuss the difference between codes of ethics, codes of conduct, codes of practice. So it is important that you have a look at this so that those three concepts you can understand how they compare, but also how they differ. In part 3 of the presentation, you have some information about what is called professional responsibility and employee loyalty. Particularly, employee loyalty means, should I be loyal to my company, to my employer? Yes, no, to what extreme? In what situations that loyalty must be questioned? And in this particular part of the presentation is the moment where we talk about whistleblowing. Whistleblowing, it's a very interesting concept that basically means that as members of companies, as members of institutions, there are moments, there are situations in which we need to voluntarily release information to society. And we use different channels of communication because we want to alert that something illegal or unethical or immoral is happening in that company, in that institution, in that school, in that university. And it's really interesting to talk about whistleblowing because as we noticed, there is the concept of employer-employee loyalty, but also there is our loyalty to the public, to the general public. So there, in this section of the presentation, we talk about whistleblowing situations where we should do it, should not we do it, considerations that are important, and particular distinctions. There are some types of whistleblowing that you need to know, that you need to be um, aware of. And there are here in this part of the presentation, there are some ideas that I consider are relevant for you to take into account. Finally, the last part of the presentation is about the comparison and contrast between moral responsibility, legal liability, and accountability. Three concepts that are connected to professional ethics, or the ethics that we need to have when we are professionals. You have some examples, some definitions, and with that, the presentation finishes. So as you see, it's a presentation that summarizes the content from the chapter and defines, presents ideas that are key for Unit 2. Finally, the last resource that you have, that is an option for you also to check, is this video that you can just click and watch online in our website. And the presentation incorporates a concept that connects very well with professional ethics. That is the concept of social responsibility. The invitation is that you watch the video so that you can complement what is presented in the chapter and what is presented in the presentation, in the PPT, with this video. Now, to finish this short video about what we have to do, there are two activities that you can do. These two activities are options. You can do activity 2 or activity 3. You don't have to do the two activities. I have to clarify that. Or you do activity 2 or you do activity 3. Your decision depends on what you want to work, because activity 2 is an essay, a 3-paragraph essay about blowing the whistle. So if you want to practice with your writing skill and you want to practice that, do please activity 2. Activity 3 is about generating an animation about being a whistleblower. And for that purpose, you are invited to use Powtoon, the website Powtoon, where you can generate from 2 or 3 minute maximum animation that presents, discusses, explains what is to be a whistleblower. So if you decide to do activity 2, go into the activity, read the information that is presented, follow the steps, and submit the activity. This activity, it says here, May the 2nd, but no, in reality, we're going to move it because we are going to have the activity. You have access to the possibility of participating in this activity, as I said at the beginning of the video, in week May the 4th. So let me see if I can change that quickly. If I can change it here, I would do it. Okay, if not, yes. So let's try to change this quickly because the time that I have to present is not enough. Okay, no, I'm gonna change it, but the maximum time you have is no this Sunday. No, it's Tuesday, May the 4th. The second, so please come here if you want to do the essay, read the instructions. Very important that you watch this video that explains what is a 3-paragraph essay. The second option or alternative that you have for Unit 2 is a Powtoon. If you want to do the Powtoon, same situation, come here, read the instructions, watch the video, and when you have the Powtoon, upload it into the system. The two are options, are alternatives. Choose one, do the essay or the Powtoon. Well, thank you so much for your attention. I hope you are okay, and I will see you soon in our next meeting online. Bye-bye.